Hello guys, this is the Drifting Lemur and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to do something different, and today I'm going to show you a new build that I've made for Minecraft Dungeons. That is none other than the Mechanized Sawblade build. So I'm going to showcase it. I'm going to give you guys some advantages, disadvantages, and other stuff. So as you can see, it can do a lot of damage, and I'll show you guys the weapons, equipment, and everything else you'll need for this build. So guys, before we begin, I would appreciate if you hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and without further ado, let's begin with the items you need for this build. So the first thing you're going to want is a Pride of the Piglins crossbow. Its common variant is the cog crossbow. This is gilded, so you're not going to get that tier 2 firing of piercing bolts. So remember that. The reason why I want cog crossbow, well technically Pride of the Piglins, is because it has a charge up attack where it can shoot up to 5 charged arrows if charged up. Second thing you want is a splendid robe. Its common variant is the battle robe, and you're going to want protection, cooldown, and chilling. You want protection because you're going to have to go real up close to mobs. You're going to want cooldown so you can use your artifacts easier, and you want chilling so you can slow down the mobs so it's a little easier. So definitely, I would recommend cooldown and protection. If you want chilling, go ahead, but I took chilling so mobs are easier to defeat. Now you're going to want the Mechanized Sawblade, obviously, since the build's based off of that. Its common variant is the Broken Sawblade, and I put on Stunning, Shockwave, and Radiance. You're going to need Radiance as it's your only method of healing in this build. Also going to want Shockwave so it's easier to defeat mobs. I chose Stunning, but you can also go for critical hit. I chose Stunning myself so mobs are easier. Now, you're also going to want Deathcap Mushroom. Reason why is because you can then spam Shockwave much better with your Deathcap Mushroom. Deathcap Mushrooms can be found in a couple locations. One of them is in Creeper Woods. The second thing you want is your Ironhide amulet. Since you're basically going to be fighting mobs like up close, you're going to need this or else you're going to die. Next thing you're going to want is Boots of Swiftness. Now, that's what I chose personally. I mean, you can just go ahead and choose like a high damage build, like a Satchel Elements instead of Boots of Swiftness, but I like going fast, so me personally, I chose the Boots of Swiftness. So that's all the items. I'm now going to show you some disadvantages for the build. I also forgot to mention, for the enchantments for Pride of the Piglins, I chose Poison Cloud, Gravity, and Enchanting. You want Enchanting because enchanted mobs can be very dangerous in this build. I also chose Poison Cloud, so if an arrow shoots, it can also deal damage through Poison Cloud. I also chose Gravity to hog up mobs into one area. So if we go here and try out the build, as you can see, the Pride of the Piglins itself uses the Poison Cloud to deal lots of damage. It then pulls in gravity mobs, and then if there's any enchanted mobs, you will do that extra damage to it. So let's go use this thing on this. And as you can see, the enchanting is doing really good. Of course, that's not an enchanted mob, but an unenchanting is something I would really recommend, because enchanted mobs can kill with this build. Like, especially with thorns and deflect, you could really die. Of course, if you have deflect, it's not gonna be a pretty good idea using the Pride of the Piglins. But nevertheless, if you wait for your charged arrows, you can then deal actual more damage. So, if the Sawblade overheats, you can then go far and then shoot, and then come back, wait for your arrows to charge up, and then once it's gone, wow, it's taking a lot longer now. And then you can just shoot, and then it's going to do constant damage. So that's one thing I actually like with this build. It can do a lot of constant damage. But one thing I will say is your arrows can deplete very quickly with this build. So keep that in mind when you're using this build, because the Pride of Piglins uses up to 5 arrows if charged. So that can really damage your arrow supply, in which some levels you're going to want your arrows. So keep that in mind. Well, now I'm going to list the disadvantages and advantages. An advantage that you have is that this is a really good weapon and build for crowd control. Like, as you can see, I'm just destroying this group of mushrooms. And if you have stunning, you can even stun mobs from attacking you in the front rows, which could potentially help you to save some damage. And if you use some TNT, you could also do good. And the Pride of the Piglins, if you get really lucky, you could get some piercing and poison cloud, and that would be amazing. But just keep in mind you can lose a lot of arrows still. However, just because this is good against crowd control doesn't mean it's good against a lot of enchanted mobs. Like right here, I died, but mostly because I probably didn't use my Iron Honey Amulet. Now, of course, since it has enchanting, it can deal a lot of damage against the mobs. And since it's electrified, if you can time properly, you can attack and then completely avoid the electrify. However, with mobs such as Deflect, I would say it's not worth it because you're just going to get all the damage put onto you. And with Thorns, Thorns can really kill, as I said before. Now, this build is really good against bosses like the Mushroom Monstrosity, and of course its companion, the Redstone Monstrosity. It's really good against these kind of bosses because since they're slow and since their enemies are pretty easy to defeat, if you use the Pride of Piglins and just hog them up, you can do a lot of damage against them. So definitely against like these kind of bosses, I would say this is a really good build for that. One thing this build isn't good against, however, are stronger mobs such as Royal Guards. This can really, they can still kill. However, it's a little harder since it has a lot of health, and since this build is mostly based on shockwave and stunning, well, for me, stunning, it can still not be as good. And if you have unluckiness, you could definitely die very quickly with this. One thing I would say is this build is not good against some mini bosses. I haven't tested it out against Evoker and Illusioner. I can definitely say it's not good against the Redstone Golem. As you can see, I've only done a fourth of its health, yes. However, it's pretty easy to get killed by this thing quickly. Of course, you can use a Gong Awakening, but then you're just sacrificing health. And if you get hit by one of those redstone mines, it can be very devastating. Of course, if you play your cards right, you can just still kill it, but I would not recommend using the Gong Awakening with this build unless you know what you're doing, because stuff like this would happen where you're gonna get game over. Well, time for some gameplay, guys. Alright, I'll now show you some no commentary gameplay of me playing with this build in Archhaven. So enjoy the gameplay, guys. I'll be back at the end of the video. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this build. It took a lot of time to work on this. Now, of course, there are better stuff, like better enchantments and items you could use in this build. And if you find any, feel free to put it in the comments below. Now, I'm not sure if this will be good against the higher apocalypse levels, like apocalypse plus 25. I do not know, as I've not gotten there yet. I just got to apocalypse 12, and I'm not doing that because I'm seriously underpowered for that. So I'll definitely say there's a lot of good advantages with this build, and I could actually say it might do really good against Apocalypse Plus 25 mode. But I will say at the same time it might not be as good because you're probably going to want a faster weapon, as enemies do a lot more damage and are faster. But there's a lot of advantages with this build. It's pretty good against crowds of mobs. It's good against some bosses, but I will say it's not good against enemies with reach, such as Royal Guard and that's Vanguard from the Desert Temple. It's also not good against very tanky redstone golems, in my opinion. It could be easy, but for me, it just feels like it's not good against that. Well, guys, this is going to be the end of the video now. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this build. If you liked the build and you tried it out, also tell me in the comments below. If there's anything you would like to improve yourself, feel free to let that in the comments below too. So guys, this is the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. This is the Drifting Lemur. Goodbye.